Cool. All right.
It's easy.
Technology. So hi, my name is Kadeza Begum. I'm working on my current business, so it's my second business. The first one I started while I was a student, like you, which I'll talk about maybe later. Currently, I'm working with two co-founders on a business called Art Shop, and it is essentially twofold. So there's the B2B element, which is helping micro businesses who are in the ethical and sustainability space, help with getting certifications like fair trade marks and so on, to help them compete with the big guys, basically. So a lot of time it's policy and these little badges that stop them being taken seriously. So there's the business development side of micro businesses, and then there's the business to customer side, which is helping conscious consumers identify and find these independent brands. So trying to get money to the small people, because people are a lot more aware of where their money goes. They want transparency from brands. They want to shop with their values. So on our directory on our website, you can tick like, I want plastic free, I want women owned, I want Latin owned, I want it to come from this continent. So it really helps you direct your funds where you want. And my day-to-day, so I might be the only one on the panel, I don't know, I'll hear from my two panelists here, but I also work as well as have a business. So this is something that a lot of you should maybe consider, because a lot of you might think it's all or nothing. So it gives me a lot of flexibility and much more of a safety net. So for example, this morning I was out in the park having coffee with friends, and now I'm here and I'm not working today. Whereas yesterday I was in my part-time day job hosting something similar to this. So I also work in higher education, and we were like having a founder talk from, Covent Garden Soup Company. So he came in and ran a masterclass for us. So my day-to-day looks very different. My weeks look very different. And last night, 9 p.m. was when we have our team meeting, because my two co-founders are mums. So there's a whole lifestyle change. So that's kind of how I work day-to-day, week-to-week.
Wonderful, thank you.
No worries.
Corinna.
There you go.
Oh, I think that's it.
That's fine.
Oh yeah, this is
Thank you. Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Corinna, and I am the co-founder of Coco Rio. And you probably know from Leah that she is my co-founder too. So you may have heard about what Coco Rio does, but we're essentially a childcare marketplace for creatives. So we work with lots of musicians, actors, dancers, and give them work with children, either working as nannies in various different families or working with businesses in creches, at events, music festivals, and so on. And at the moment, my day-to-day looks essentially like customer relations and customer support, but it sometimes looks more like recruiting. Sometimes it looks like a mix between the two. There's a lot of managing people also that we work with, and people that we want some partnerships with. So it's very varied, but there's always that underlying tone of there's a sale, there's a customer, you need to kind of respond as well as you can. Keep calm. There's lots of problems that come to you, and you have to enjoy the solving of them.
Amazing. Georgie.
Nice. Okay, my name is Georgi. I graduated from Greenwich in 2018, so I'm alumni. I have two businesses actually. One of them is consulting. So I'm helping companies with their software development lifecycle, which is, for example, either software development or architecture, or let's say some other sort of consulting, organizing the team's processes, etc., etc., etc. And the other business is a fitness app. So it's like an AI personal trainer, so helping people to get started within the gym or track their workouts and so on. Yeah, that's...
Amazing, thank you. So, I want to know a little bit about what planted the seed of entrepreneurship for you. So, perhaps were you surrounded by entrepreneurs growing up, or was there a particular moment or influence that really said, oh yes, I'm going to start a business?
I think when I was younger, I probably wasn't even aware that I was surrounded by certain entrepreneurs. So I had an uncle who was a car dealer, or another cousin who owned a restaurant. Sometimes you don't even see that as, oh, wow, you own this. You just think that's what they do. But I think what really planted the seed was when I was in my placement year. So I did a product design undergrad, and I spent that year working for two startups. And that gave me like the biggest exposure to that startup scene. And I thought, wow, this is really cool. So often I would be like two co-founders, and I'd be the junior designer, and it's very small, so my day-to-day looked really different. I really got to see the nitty-gritty of the business, and you get given a lot more responsibility because the team's so small, so you're doing things which you probably wouldn't always get the opportunity to. Say if you're working in a huge company, you'd be like assistant of an assistant, right? So I think it's working in the startup scene that really kind of made me think, wow, this is cool, maybe this is what I want to do. Yeah.
Amazing. What about you, Corinna?
Sure. I don't actually think I had many entrepreneurs around me at all growing up. My parents are very sort of different kind of proper employees, and they've always had that kind of normal life. You need to, get a job that's forever, and it's kind of acceptable, and that's what it looks like. And so I was trying to think how to answer your question. I think actually I was very bored as a kid. I was an only child, and I think I had a lot of time to just imagine weird things, and I would just have lots of crazy ideas that I would talk to people about. So eventually I made the connection of, would that be fun to actually do that as a job, or wouldn't it be cool to open this type of business? But I never sort of was particularly conscious about that being entrepreneurship until I guess it just came up at uni a little bit like for you. It was just kind of a way of living, just coming up with ideas and things like that.
Amazing.
As for me, some people in my family are entrepreneurs, and honestly, I never paid attention to this, but I was generally very bored. So I started doing a lot of things. It started with me being a professional League of Legends player. So I used to game all day, which got me a contract. Then I lost that contract, and then I started reselling shoes, sneakers, and expensive luxury goods, which started my entrepreneurial journey. And then, I just moved into tech after that. Yeah.
I love it. I think all three very different examples, but you can see that it almost happened kind of like, well, it feels like it might be accidental, but actually there's a whole sort of story behind how you got there. And I think it's important for all of us to think about that when we're, doing entrepreneurship courses, or whether you're part of the Enterprise Challenge and you've got this whole route of how your business is going to go to market. It's great that you're getting these tools to do that. But I think it's also worth thinking about that sometimes, all of the planning is almost over-engineering it. Sometimes it's just about starting something, just go for it, and then see what happens. And that's how you learn. That's how you get to either continue growing whatever it is you planted the seed of, or move to something different. I think those are just very important nuances to consider, especially when you're at your stage kind of thinking about potentially starting your own business, or some of you have already started businesses. Great. So I think you've all kind of partly answered my next question, but I'm kind of interested in hearing whether there was potentially another career path that you kind of saw yourself, maybe a more traditional one that you thought, oh, maybe I'll be X, Y, Z, as you were growing up.
I think especially during university, being in product design, you get exposed to so many different skills and sectors. So even now looking at where my, university friends are, is such a broad spectrum. But I always thought maybe one day, but not so soon. So like I said, started my own business while I was at university. That happened completely by accident. But with what I thought long term, I thought maybe I'd start my own branding company or something like that, because I really enjoyed concepts. So yeah, not really what I had planned, but it's just one of those, let's see what happens kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, quite similarly, actually. I always thought eventually I would set up a business, but just, not at 23, I think we were. So quite similarly, I just studied the creative arts at uni, and I just thought, okay, I'm just going to end up working in arts administration, so organising events and concerts, or working in a theatre and an art gallery, which is sort of stuff that I had been doing while studying, and also was thinking that I would have continued doing for a while. And it's only really when Leah asked me, what if we just make my initial idea actually happen as a business, that I just thought, okay, we just got to do it. And when you start sort of working on it, there's just nothing to stop it. And I think that's the fun bit. We just ended up being caught into this business without really expecting to be.
Yes, for me, it's slightly different. Up until 2022, I never thought I would go into business and do everything the way it is nowadays, let's say. But I had this particular situation where I had a job as a software engineer, and we had a 24/7 chat. It was really busy. The company got very lucky around COVID, so their revenue grew 100 times. So it was very busy, and we all went to the manager and we asked, okay, we've worked 300 hours overtime in the last month and a bit. So everyone worked really hard, and we asked for compensation. And basically our manager said, well, you guys don't deserve nothing. And then we said, why don't you do it yourself? And he said, well, why should I bark when I have dogs to do so? And I was like, okay then. And we all hopped on a call, 30 people. We sent the resignation letter at the same time, same minute. So he got all of them at once. And I said, you know what? From now on, I'm going to do everything possible not to depend on people like that. So for me, it was more of a, I want to take care of my people, of my family, my friends. So that was more of a motivation. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
What motivation.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Okay, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of your businesses. Did you make any big mistakes, or was there anything significant that went wrong? And how did that shape what happened next?
I think with both businesses, there's always a part where you learn where you need to spend and where you need to save. And sometimes we could be like, oh, I'm a designer, therefore I should do my own logo. And you spend so much time doing it and the logo still looks rubbish. And then your ego's like, I should be able to do this. So there's those kind of lessons, especially with my first business, like contracts, doing them properly. So I lost time and money working with people on collaborative things where it just didn't work out. Also fellow student entrepreneurs. So it was kind of like going to like the leader of the team, be like, didn't deliver or whatever it might have been. So there are so many resources, so make sure you tap into those kind of things and get that help. And the difference now with having two co-founders, we do delegate a lot, and then sometimes that does cost us money. So like paying people to do our social media, if they don't understand the brand, you end up having to redo things. Same with like when we did our rebrand recently, we worked with a professional, they were supposed to provide like brand guidelines and so, and then the website person was waiting for the next thing, and it's really holding things up. I was just not happy with what they delivered. So I'm up like 3 a.m. doing brand guidelines. Like, I shouldn't have to do this. I paid you and now I have to do it as well and lose sleep. So I think it's just those kind of costly mistakes of wanting to trust people, give people opportunities. But sometimes you just have to also be ready to be like, okay, what's my fallback? Is it going to be me putting in my own time? Is it me, dipping into that contingency fund to correct it? So like failing fast, I guess. But also there have been good things that have happened. But yeah, you only make those mistakes once, usually.
Yeah, I think quite similarly, the hiring side of things can always be quite difficult, especially when you're maybe like young and inexperienced yourself. At least we were, we had hired people through various different jobs, but maybe not at that senior level that we were looking at. And I think people can underestimate you, try to perhaps, kind of sell themselves with those big brands on their CV that look like they know more than you do, and so you think, okay, that's actually a good place to put your money, or just people that just weren't frankly good enough. And I think for us, our main learning, if I can speak for you as well, was just to figure this out as fast as you can, because hiring is guesswork. So it's just about, as soon as you get the feeling that maybe that person isn't doing what you need them to do, to really just let them go and have those difficult conversations, even if that impacts your day-to-day work. Let's say someone is doing customer service, were they to leave, you'd have to do it yourself, or you'd have to, have some issues with it while they're not there. It doesn't matter. It is absolutely worth doing it sooner than later, because these things will otherwise get bigger and bigger, and people problems are just the worst. So I would say that's definitely one piece of recommendation that I have.
I would say two very important things is to always set expectations and always set deliverables, and maybe third one, never give away too much until they have proven themselves. So I had to kick two co-founders out. So it was kind of interesting. We started as a 2, then we became 3, then we became 2, then we became 3 again, and now we're 2 again. So fun story is basically one of the co-founders, literally, he was very talkative, very likable, very charismatic. Everyone trusted him, everyone believed him. And when it came down to like doing work, it would never get done. Sending, for example, a proposal to a client 5 days late. And it was always really slow. And when you're a startup, you can't afford that. And it's very important to set deliverables and expectations. So that, for example, made me think, okay, well, put some clawback clauses. If you don't do this, then you're going to lose part of your business, of your shares, and so on. So I would always say don't give away what you have worked for and what you have invested in, so someone can have it just like this, just because they're, let's say, more famous than you, or they've done something that, or they have a skill set that you don't have. Yeah, because every skill set that you can see out there, you can probably learn, and you can probably get better than the rest. Yeah.
Just wanted to add to that point as well. Like, not everybody has to be an employee or take shares in your company when you feel like you've got nothing to give. So always try and do like a temporary hire just to test them out. And I think that's a mistake we made, because then you feel like, now I have to fire someone and this is awkward. And also, like, because of our brand and values, we wanted to live by that. So we were like, oh, we want to give minority people more of a chance to get work experience, or hire women and do all these things. But sometimes trying to stick to these rigid things will kind of, you fall on your own sword a little bit, because you're trying to be too purist. So I think, be mindful of what other ways you can get that skill, and not feel like now they're tied in, the only person who can update my website is so-and-so, So be free to like test people out, trial them out. Not everyone needs, to have that level of like access and prestige straight away, I think, like, especially when you've built it. Yeah.
What I find really interesting is that my question was around any big mistakes, and the conversation very naturally went towards people management and hiring. And I think there's a lesson in that, because I think all too often we think, oh, we'll just hire someone, tell them what to do, and the job will be done, and my job will be easier because now I've got somebody else. Well, that is not always the case. And most often, the more people you bring on, the more difficulties come with that, right? So I think just don't fall into the trap of thinking, well, I'm going to build a team so I can just kind of sit back and dictate what happens. That doesn't happen. That doesn't work, right? People are great, but they also bring people problems, and that's a lot to deal with. So just something to be mindful of, and that's not to deter you from building a team. You absolutely need a team. You need people in your corner. You can't do something by yourself all alone. But don't underestimate what it takes to manage, right?
Oh, sorry, I'm just going to add to this quite quickly. And I think the main bit is, at the beginning of your startup, you're just learning a lot. So if you kind of lose touch of one side of the business because someone else is dealing with it, they're likely to, know less than you do, and therefore kind of not maybe pick up on all the learnings, even, if they're an amazing person. So I think you do want to know all about the learning, and you want to kind of be in control of it. And then, of course, once you do have a playbook that you can repeat, then hiring someone may be a bit less risky, but finding someone who has the same learning like capacity and interest as you is going to be really hard, because you are the founder, so you really care about this in a way that maybe someone else won't.
Mm-hmm. And I'm interested in how you all view success today, and potentially how it's changed from when you first started a business.
I think when I first started, obviously there's the monetary gain you look for in terms of, that's a very clear metrics. How many sales am I doing, et cetera? How are we growing? How much investment, and how popular is it? But I think work-life balance and all that kind of stuff, it was always this thing that doesn't exist, right? Why do this? Doesn't even have a term, because then it makes you feel like it's attainable. For me now, like, having the flexibility I have, to me, that's success. And when I do consulting, I'm always going to be paid to do something from my strengths, and I'll take on projects that I enjoy, and I work with people that I'm inspired by, and so on and so forth. So like, some weeks I'll work 1 day, some weeks I'll work 4 days. Like, to have that flexibility and still work towards something that is meaningful and can have that wider impact, which is what we're trying to do with ARD, to me, that is success. So I might not be a millionaire or whatever, maybe one day. I'm not saying there's still goals, but I think life's just too short, and the things that I value is what I will kind of measure my success by, and how much I can attain that.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think the risk is to constantly move the goalpost, which I find myself doing a lot. I think at the beginning, when you start a business, you're like, wow, let's aim for this amount of revenue or this number of customers. And then you reach that level, and it's never good enough because of all the amount of time that you've spent working on this business, and all the energy and the sacrifices, frankly, because a lot of the time you don't have that work-life balance, especially at the beginning. So I think, instead of kind of moving the goalpost, is looking at what would have made it all worth it, knowing that all of that sacrifice has happened. And, part of it is, as you say, like, having that positive life that you're enjoying, no matter the fact that you are pushing yourself a lot and have ambitions, but also then what would have, in the future, I would be sort of thankful to get to a place where I'm like, okay, that was all worth it. And I think that's just kind of something to keep in mind instead of constantly wanting to do better and better and better.
And on another note, yes, we're constantly trying to be better, but sometimes in order to get better, you have to step back. So I let my entire business burn down to the ground. I let the other guys take care of it, and I saw it just dying, and I felt horrible. But on the other hand, with that, I could see, okay, so this doesn't work, let me go in that direction. And that's when we started getting help from investors. I found my mentor, who is a co-founder of a 3 billion valued company. It's called Century. And basically, I got really good advice how to target the right audience, how to reshape the business, how to kick one of my co-founders. So it was absolutely crazy. But yes, sometimes you just have to take a step back and say, okay, actually I'll let myself breathe a little bit. And with that, let's say fresh air, you can kind of see a lot more than you can imagine. Yeah.
Just one other thing, I realized I spoke very much from my own perspective of like being an entrepreneur and what that allows you to do in terms of control over your life and time. From a business perspective, I think for us in success is the impact. So because we want to work with micro businesses who might be working with indigenous communities and people who are farming something, for example, it's that wider impact of improving people's lives around the world. That is like our business mission, to help them compete and be discovered and have their own livelihoods. And success is if people, log onto our website as opposed to going to Amazon as their first point of I'm going to shop. That is success for us. Yeah.
I love that. And I think it's clear that success is very different for the individual and for the business. So I think, when you're working through your own businesses and kind of thinking through what your goals are, speak about them with your friends, of course, but you don't need to compare because you all have a very different journey and success will look different for each and every one of you. So just something to keep in mind. We will be opening up the floor for questions soon, so have a think about what you want to know from our wonderful panel. But before we do that, a question that hopefully will help every one of you in the room today. So if you were to start again today from zero, you've got nothing, what would you do differently in the first 6 months?
I think for us, because we've pivoted quite a lot, so we are 5 years into our journey. We've had funding from different people. We've had so many different mentors, and every time we've shifted. So in some ways it can look quite chaotic, and it's like, what are you doing? But I think for us, what our issue is, and I think a lot of people have this, is trying to be too perfect. It's better to just get out and make the noise early and be like, okay, that's not working. And you forget, the internet is 24/7. When you try to find a post again, you'll never find it. So even if that post was crappy and it didn't have the engagement, just keep going, because there's so much out there. You'll get lost in that blip of the internet. So don't be shy, because if you look at our Instagram feed, it's such a mess. And as a designer, I'm like, oh God, it's so embarrassing. And then you do giant square, and then Instagram changes the aspect ratio. Now my squares are rectangles. So you just can't, control things, but just keep going, keep making noise, because I think every time we've made shifts, we've lost momentum. And then it's the whole, how do we restart? Now we need to rebrand. Now we need to do a new website. And then you keep coming back to zero. So we've done that a lot of times. But I think it's just keeping going, being like, what's the worst that's going to happen? It's not necessarily costing you money, but in the way it can be, because if you're not getting to the right thing sooner, you are losing time from making that money sooner, if you know what I mean. I hope that made sense. But just get on with it, basically.
Get on with it.
Yeah, definitely get on with it. I think we had this idea that tech would kind of help us in a way that we couldn't have experimented with clients and our workers. And actually, that's not true. We could have been a lot leaner from the beginning, not spent any time trying to build something without really knowing what we were building and who we were building for. But I think we do fall into the trap of thinking, I need this because all my competitors have it, or I need that. But actually, if you have an original idea and you know why you're doing it, there will be people keen to try it out, be it you know, just you calling people up and asking if it's a good idea, or getting feedback over a kind of minimum, I don't know, element of your idea. It doesn't even need to be the full idea yet. Again, we were designing all these services and all these different pricing models and all these ways in which people could have booked, but that was just not needed because we didn't have enough customers. You know, the automation wasn't going to help us with large numbers yet. We just needed to, you know, learn from customers and speak to them. So just go speak to lots of different people, get the feedback, and then, you know, it will take a while to actually know what you want to build, but you're still maybe earning money, and you're still maybe building that, you know, connections and CRM and people that you can then sell to again over and over again.
If I had to start from beginning, first of all, I would say you should be your own devil's advocate. Always question yourself, because what you think is not necessarily what's going to sell. Your idea is not going to sell until you prove that it's sellable. So asking people if they would pay for something, what are their pain points? If you don't have an idea, ask for pain points. See what matches. Because if you have 20 people and 5 of them say, this is my problem, this is something that I waste 2 hours a day, well, this is probably the vertical that you can target. So if you find that problem, then the next thing is, okay, how much would you pay for this? And then you have a pricing model or some sort of a pricing structure. And once you know how much would you pay for this, then would you actually commit to paying this if I build it in 3 months? And this is when actually you can get customers before you start the business. This is your initial funding, or this is your initial green light to start the business. And yes, if I had to start it all over again, probably if it's a SaaS business or some sort of automation, this is how I would approach it. Yes.
This is great. For anyone who joined the Enterprise Challenge workshop earlier, I hope you're seeing what we talked about echoed here. It's all about that validation, right? Just go for it, because you need to learn. You need to learn from your customers. Amazing. What we'll do is we'll open up the floor for questions. And then in our follow-up email, I'll share where you can find information about all our panelists, because, I mean, you could say it out loud, but people always miss that information. So I'll share it over email after. But we'd love to hear from you. What are your questions for our panel? Did you have a question, Lynette? Did you want to start? Yes.
What do you think is going to be the next step of your business? Like, you know, and you say to us, where are you now? What do you think is going to happen next? What do you wish for your business? What improvement probably you think you need, and why?
Yeah. So kind of going on from Corinna's point, I think especially now everyone's like going crazy over AI, and a lot of people are trying to push things through an AI-shaped hole where it doesn't need to be. So knowing when to use the right tools instead of just jumping on the hype, because you spend a lot of time, like we've tried using AI to speed up certain things, but then you realize you have to go back and do so much editing if you want quality stuff to go out, that it's not been worth the effort, like writing grant funds and things like that, right? We are utilizing tech to help with like the bottleneck of our business, which a lot of it is, say all of you were applying to be on our platform, we would individually have to meet with you between an hour or 4 hours to do the first auditing of your business, see what would be the next steps, what are the right certifications for you, where are the gaps, what are the products that you should push and verify quickly, etc. And that is very time consuming. So that is that big bottleneck on, even though we have 3 co-founders, we all have very different parts to play in the business, which is great, but also very taxing on the one individual. So thinking of how we can create our own custom GPT to do that part of the initial form filling and doing that vetting phase, and then they can meet with a founder or maybe take on a one-to-one with another advisor we might have to then get them to the next stage and get them doing. So it's very much looking at our pipeline of the membership, what they need, how we can track that. So there's that element of it. The other thing is, like I said, momentum and getting out there. So even when Leah reached out to do this, I was like, oh, do I want to do it? And I thought, actually, I need to get back out there as well and talk about the business, because things are always changing. So keeping your ears to the ground and giving yourself that exposure. So right now we are prepping to do some webinars. We've got some events lined up to give some real world, interactions with us. And we know we need to show the businesses we can help them, instead of them thinking this is probably some fake AI built website and everyone can help me and everyone's trying to sell me something. So putting out some free stuff, some free ebooks, and kind of building that value up first instead of just trying to sell things to people. And that way we will see them almost self-disqualified. So everyone might say they want to do it, but there's the people who are serious and there's people who pay for membership and follow through, because we're putting a lot of energy into stuff and not seeing the outcomes, right? So I think that's what we really want to do, is tighten up those parts of the business. We need to get out there and make noise. We need to find the right brands who want to work with us, because when people come on our directory, we don't want crappy brands so they never come back. We want them to go, wow, these are the people I want to support. So that's kind of what we're focusing on for the next 3 months, is getting out there digitally and physically.
Cool. Yeah, for us, this is a really interesting time. I would say we're quite happy with where we're at with the different products that we have. So the D2C side, the B2B side, and various different ways in which we work with businesses. And so now that we've done it quite manually in the past year and got to profitability, which is great, we're still a very, very small team, and we've done it quite so manually just to really understand the process. And now we're about to launch our platform, which is probably the first platform that we've built that we're actually really proud of, but that's just how it works, because I think we now understand things a lot better, which is going to help us scale just by taking more inquiries and more customers and automating lots of bits of the journey that make sense automating. Some of them may not make sense automating, so we keep them as human as possible, and then do a lot of more lead gen and actually look out for these businesses that may want to become our customers instead of just kind of sitting there and waiting for them to come to us, because hopefully we will have more time to actually engage them in this. We're also doing lots of like bureaucratic little things on Companies House, like splitting, the company into various different companies, just so that we can offer different contracts to different people and kind of allow them to kind of have a better work opportunities with us, which again is something that we wouldn't have known until quite recently as to how to do, and it wouldn't have made necessarily sense, and now it does. And so it's really exciting to actually now kind of see a kind of way to grow this and make it happen.
And from my side, I personally think that if I think about the money and chasing money, it's going to run away. If I think about customers and chasing customers, it's going to run away. So currently we have, about 100 and something customers that are paying. So we have daily calls. We listen to what the issues are, what are the things that annoy them. So we go and fix them, have discussions with my co-founder and the designer. And I also now on another spectrum talking to a lot of creators, and it's very funny situation, because I thought, okay, now I really need to go and spend a lot of money on marketing, but then it turned out that it's not the way it looks. Actually, sometimes the resources that you have are not money. Sometimes people want to be part of the journey, and 4 out of the 5 people that I spoke with this week, they said, we actually just want to be here because it's fun, because you guys do cool stuff, and because of who you are, and that was something that really struck me as a surprise, which opens up a lot more, let's say, a lot more ways to grow. So kind of just, I would say, if you chase something, it's going to run away. You kind of have to focus on what matters, and what matters is your customer. So if you don't satisfy the current customers you have, the new customers that come, they'll be annoyed and angry that something doesn't work. They'll leave right away. So they'll be saying, oh, what did I spend those 30 pounds on, or 100 pounds? Oh, no, thank you. I want my refund. So make sure that you satisfy the people, that are paying already. Yes.
Amazing. We've got time for just about one question, and then we'll be here for a little bit, so you can still come and speak individually. Yes, I think your hand came up first.
I just wanted to ask, you guys said that you have mentors. So how did you go about finding a mentor? Did you find one in the competitors that you have, or like, do you get what I'm trying to say?
I will hand over to you in a second, but as a University of Greenwich student, you get free mentorship through the generator. So either with myself or my colleague Junior, which you can book on. They're called one-to-ones. You can come to speak to me later, and I can show you how to click on that. But let's hear from our panelists how they get mentoring for their business.
I would also say don't stress yourself out finding a mentor like it's some golden handshake. It can work, but sometimes I think when you put so much onus on them and you think they know everything, they're still a person. And often when you work with certain mentors, they'll have a contract to be like, this is just advice. If you take it, that's on you, you know, because it's your business and we're all adults. So don't think that someone's going to build your business and love your baby as much as you're going to love your baby, right? Because they're working with loads of people. So be mindful of that. Unless they have skin in the game and they're investing, they're not going to give you that worthwhile, you know, golden insights because they've got something to benefit from it as well. We have found our mentors through different programs we've been on. So like I mentioned, we've had funding and things in the past through various bodies. We were on the Cambridge Business Incubator, so that kind of did a lot for us. That gave us access to quite a cool suite of mentors. WeWork, so this shows how old the business is. You know, when WeWork was a big thing, they have a whole mentorship network, so you can book in with random people. So I would say think about where it's worth investing for certain memberships just for the perks. Rinse it and get out, and then try something else. You have to keep it moving because you have to find the right fit for you, and you know the people who really understand what they're doing, as opposed to those who is just the ego, very big on LinkedIn, lots of AI posts probably, and everybody's fantastic, but you'll know the right fit when they almost come to you. So when people come and offer you genuinely, and then you look into the background and be like, this is going to be actually really help us. Even like the retired people, sometimes they don't have anything to gain, they just love it for the game. That's when you sometimes just get that, because they look at you and be like, oh, you're like my daughter, I really want to help you out. So that's the ideal, where they genuinely care for you, almost like you're their child. But don't get overly fixated on this mentor. Think, what exactly do I want them to mentor me for? So for example, as we're switching more towards SaaS models, we know we need someone in tech because we're not technical, right? So we want someone who's built like loads of SaaS businesses that are successful. Like that's a quick way to check that, you know, you validate they're the right person and worth my time or money if I'm paying for that mentorship. Yeah.
Yeah, so quite similarly to you, I think we never had an agenda in terms of I need this specific person with this specific skill set. We sort of knew what was missing and what would have been nice to have. And yeah, did lots of programs, met lots of people along the way. But I would say really the only one person, Parag, who's also our CTO now, and he sort of came to happen by chance. So again, we met him on one of these platforms where you meet advisors and investors, which is called Connected, without the E at the end. And I don't know if they still do advisors, but that was just a kind of generic call we had with him, and we just happened to really click, kind of on a personal level as well as a kind of business one, and almost like on a kind of very wide level in terms of the reasons why we're doing the business and like really kind of view of the world. And I think it was about a year in of just having catch-up calls every now and then without sort of paying anything or, you know, considering a proper like program or anything like that, that then we realized, okay, this person can actually become our next CTO and like do lots of things in the business. And frankly, he's advised us on anything from finance to hiring to, you know, obviously technical stuff. So I think, yeah, allow people to come to you. Like you'll meet people in the most, you know, unusual ways, and you'll click with them, and that's the right feeling to follow. Well, I think we've had lots of formal calls, like looking for like a financial advisor person or someone with a background in this or that, and it just never really materialized for us. So I guess it's just meeting the right people.
And I have a very different point of view. So I would say always invest in yourself. Always. This year I spent a month and a half in San Francisco. I wanted to have a look at what are the newest technologies, what kind of things are coming out. And I would say, as for a mentor, you always need to find someone. I would say it's a must. Finding someone that's done it. And that's done it so intensely good that, you know, you can never go wrong. So I met David Kramer at an event in San Francisco. And I just told myself, I really want to pick this guy's brain, even if it's for 30 minutes, that's it. And that's how it kind of became a thing, you know, having a call every month or two. But at the end of the day, they will never care about your business. They'll care about you as a person, and they'll care about giving you the advice and the answers to the questions that you ask. So everything depends on you. If you want to grow, and they've done it, how did you deal with this situation, or how did you deal with this challenge? So this is what matters to you. how do you get to the next level, because they've done it, and what are the challenges and what are the answers and how they've dealt with it matters a lot more than growing your business. Your knowledge matters more. So yeah, that's what I think.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you to our panel. Can we please give them all a big round of applause?